Hello, Frags of Bear family. Welcome back to Indie Spotlight. I'm your host, Zaymot, also known as Trevor on social media. Links to all of which you can find in the video description below. You're also going to find the links to all of Piper's stuff in the video description below, so make sure you check that out too and go follow her everywhere that we give you links to. Click that subscribe button. That's the easiest way to support us. And check out the new Kindle Vela link with the Shadows of Barden's story. The third episode is now up and it's free. Next episode is when they're going to start charging tokens. So leave me a review. Let me know what you think. Today on Indie Spotlight, I like to introduce new content creators and artists on Indie Spotlight on Saturdays. So today we're talking to Piper, also known as Fyzgiggidy on Twitter. You are an independent comic artist. You also do a lot of other things as well. So I'm going to let you kind of tell us about yourself.
Whew, yeah. Let's see. The art part is not doing as much of right now.
Okay.
But the writing, editing, the art part is mostly in character design.
Okay.
I want to build up to where I am like drawing. Like I have a comic I've been sitting on, a whole plot that I've been sitting on that I want to do the art for. I'm just not there yet, so I'm still sitting on it. But yeah, lots of comic stuff, and then some YouTube and Twitch content for funsies.
Sure. So you would say you're more of a writer who dabbles in art, or an artist who's doing some writing? Which way would you say?
Well, I originally wanted to be a comic artist.
Okay.
And just found out that in the process, found out that I'm just really love writing. So yeah. It really is a split, I think.
Cool. I see that a lot with comics. And I don't know, like I'm just a writer exclusively. I'd love to draw, but I can't draw to save my life. But I do see some very good artists and writers who do both. But I can't imagine. I try to imagine the amount of time it takes me to write and then to also do the art. It always blows me away when people can do both and do it well, because I know it takes a lot to do both, and to do them together. That's just crazy.
Yeah, after meeting other ones, I'm like, man, I don't mind splitting up the workload right now. Like, it's actually really refreshing to just write, honestly. Is a lot of fun.
I agree. I love writing. I love stories. I love creating and basically putting everything that's in my head down on paper and trying to describe it in a way, to me, it's like art, but it's art it's art with words. You're still trying to give people a picture.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's harder. Like when you want somebody to see a character and you draw the character, you're like, here, you see the character. But when you got to describe the character and get them to see it in their head, that's a whole different ballgame, I think. Different challenge. What got you into comics? So what I guess where was the first thing that went, ooh, I love comics? What did you see? What did you buy? What did you read that really sold you?
It's all my dad's fault. And it was actually what's interesting is it was technically cartoons first. It was that old Superman cartoon, which every time I talk about it, the dude's name escapes me, and then I'll remember it right like later. But
do you mean the one after the Batman animated series, or older than that?
Older than that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about, and it's been a long time.
Yeah, where he didn't fly, he was just jumped really high, like
right.
Classic powers before they, tweaked him and stuff. Right. Sorry, there was a fly. He would put that on. He would put, his favorite stuff on.
Yeah.
Because that's what he had. So,
right.
And, I would excitedly like, oh, this is something my dad liked when he was a kid. I'm pretty hyped already. but like the concept of superhero was that Superman cartoon.
Yeah.
And then I found out, it took a little while before it was like, yeah, well, before it was animated, you read it like this.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I was blown away there because it was more in depth than a picture book.
Right.
And I already liked drawing at that point.
Yeah.
And so I went from I want to make cartoons because, man, I wanted to design all the characters, write the story, animate it, and voice every freaking character.
Well,
like I wanted
course.
to make cartoons
Yeah.
this comic thing is a lot easier for one person to do.
Oh, sure.
Than a cartoon.
Sure. Yeah. Animation's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I can feel you there, because when I growing up watching cartoons, that was everything. That was our world, Saturday morning, getting up and watching them after school, and then getting the action figures and recreating some of the stuff or creating new story. I mean, that was a big thing. I don't know if you did the same thing, but like,
oh yeah,
creating new stories and adventures with your GI Joes or your He-Mans or whatever it was, it's just crazy. Very cool. So along those lines, with comic books, getting into that, were you more of Marvel, DC, Image? Where did you fall as far as, or did you just read them all?
I just wanted to get my hands on like anything that was a comic. My dad's side of the family, and I guess my sister falls along this line. Like, apparently they are very DC.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So they call me a traitor because I'm like not loyal to any comic line. Like, I'm like, no, I like characters wherever they happen to pop up.
Gotcha.
I get attached to characters more than brands.
I can understand that. I know I've followed a couple artists outside. I used to be mostly Marvel, but there have been times where I've dabbled in DC because I'm following an artist or a writer. I bought Batman just because of Jim Lee when he did the art for that short run a few years back, and I bought Catwoman because of now I'm going to forget her name. Writer and artist. I can't remember her name. It just flew right out of my head.
I am so bad for that, and I feel really guilty because I'm so bad for keeping track of. Like, I can keep a track of the characters' names; they don't tend to change,
right.
But artists and stuff, they will change who's doing what. Like,
right.
So
yeah, for sure. I'm terrible with names. It takes me forever to remember even the people that I work with. If I meet a new person at work, it takes me forever to remember their names. I'm horrible with it.
Yeah.
So you were working on the book Peregrine with a group of people that went to, you guys put it on Indiegogo, right?
Yeah.
And that got funded. Everything went good. Tell us a little bit about Peregrine. I guess that's pretty much the book you guys have completed and are ready to go. What do we need to know about that book, that character, etc.?
So Peregrine was brought on, like, the idea of it was brought on by, watching tons of our favorite classic characters just kind of get either, get crapped on in various ways, either through the books themselves, where they're trashing the characters because whoever's writing them and stuff doesn't like the character and they want you to know that.
Right.
Or just, getting replaced and the people replacing them having to, verbally or whatever, trash the characters or the fans on their way out. Stuff like that. Like, we're definitely getting sick of that. Yeah. So we were kind of lamenting that, the deconstruction of the superhero was an interesting avenue to explore, for a bit.
Right.
And the problem was it didn't stop getting explored. They just had to everybody's trying to one up each other on deconstructing these classic heroes that, we liked as kids because they were, ridiculous,
Sure, yeah.
It's cool to bring some maturity and some realism in later as we get older. But, there's a point where it's like, okay, well, this isn't fun anymore. Like, this isn't what we came here for. This isn't what we got hooked on.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And so we were talking about how we really need to reconstruct the concept of the superhero and this and that. And then there was also like a lot of taunting from like mainstream comics to the super indies going through Indiegogo and stuff like that, saying, oh yeah, well, you'll never have an iconic hero like, we do over here.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like, okay, one, challenge accepted, and two, you had iconic heroes and then you trashed them. Like,
yeah.
So that we see what you do with iconic heroes, and now you're bragging about having had access to them in the first place.
Yeah.
So that was our goal, was let's make a hero that has potential to become an iconic hero that has like all the ingredients we need, and then reconstruct the genre itself back to, the kind of stuff, the adventures and stuff that we liked.
Right. The mythology of superhero, like it was always American mythology is what superheroes were meant to be, and people have decided that mythology, I guess, is too offensive, and now we have to make them. I don't know what they're trying to make them into. It's just not. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. It drives me nuts what they've done and what they've turned a once cherished sort of hobby into, and it's become so distasteful. It's like you said, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, I don't know who it's for, because it's not appealing to little kids. It removed anything that appealed to kids.
Right.
And but they're still trying to market to kids. So I don't know, because they'll go, no, this isn't for you. The original fans and stuff. Which, okay, but this isn't for kids either. Like, so I don't know what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I don't know. They're marketing to people whose attention span is microseconds, because they're used to everything being fed to them instantaneously online. And same thing with role-playing games. I don't understand why they're turning their backs on the people they know will keep spending the money for people who just, again, attention spans of a flea and just don't care. I don't understand it.
But because it's weird too, because it's more like all of the marketing and the design, games, cartoons even now and stuff. The entire point of all of them is to specifically crap on original fans, call them all sorts of names using the characters, this and that, purposely, flounce around that, hey, remember the stuff you liked? Remember how cool this character was? Well, now we've made him a piece of shit, and, whatever, what have you.
Right.
And that seems to be their goal. But that's even more like, okay, so obviously not only do you not want the money from the built-in audience, but you're purposely crapping on them and you're proud of it. Yeah. But how are you going to get a new audience that way when your entire thing is centered around crapping around the original audience?
Yeah. True. It's a very good point. Yeah, like it's it just flew out of my head what I was going to say, but no, yeah, you've got a real good point. It's like how are you going to get new fans? Like your entire premise is just making people feel bad about something. Like it doesn't. Yeah. You're not going to hook people with that. Nobody cares.
Making people feel bad about being fans of any of this stuff. How are you going to get new fans? Like,
yeah.
And then of course there's the obvious, and then blame all those previous fans for why you failed. And it's like, you intentionally not just alienated them, you intentionally went out of your way with this product to actively shit on people and their favorite things, and it's their fault that you failed.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I think the best example is the it was one of the movies. Crap, I can't remember what it was, but it was a movie they put out where they changed the leading cast all to women from men, and they basically said this movie isn't for men. And then they come out and they're like, why are there no men watching this movie? It's like you just told us.
That was your marketing and your movie. Like,
you just told us you didn't want us to.
Like, did that with Ghostbusters. I think there's a
Yeah, that's
There's a
one of
couple
them.
other things they've done that with since though.
Yep.
Like
Yep, it's always the thing. It's like if you don't, this wasn't made for you, and then they complain that we don't go see it. Well, it's like, well, if you tell us not to go see it, it's pretty easy for me to go spend my money somewhere else. Is
right where it'll be appreciated for one. Like
yeah.
yeah,
People seem to think that we just have money to throw around wherever we want. Like, yeah, sure, we'll just give you $15 for no reason whatsoever because you told us to go away. Like, why would we do that? It doesn't make any sense. And they're doing the same thing to all fans. Every time they erase a woman, this is what kills me the most. Is every time they erase female fans who have been fans of things forever, been fans of comics or role playing games, and just pretend that they don't even exist. When you speak out and say, I don't like what you've done with this new market, they turn around and like, oh, guys hate this thing. It's like, you have women telling you they hate this thing, and you're like, oh, who? I don't see them. They're not even there. Like,
yeah.
how do you get away with that? But I don't
That
know.
goes along with for the first time ever female lead character, and how many first time evers have that happened now?
Right.
Same with any other thing. Like this is the first time that there's a XYZ character in something, and it's like, you mean aside from all those other times that you're conveniently forgetting that were successful,
Right.
like.
Exactly.
That's why they're conveniently forgetting some of those, is because, well, those were successful, and you apparently don't have a pitch
Yeah, for
without complaining.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right. And a lot of it is these marketing campaigns and stuff are done by young people who don't remember. They have been told all their lives that the 80s and 90s and 2000s were nothing but misogyny and sexism. And then they come out with like, oh, this is the first female lead strong character in a sci-fi movie ever, and you present them with a list of great strong female characters from the 80s and 90s science fiction, and they're like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, how can you work in this field and not be familiar with these things that came before? I get that you were born a decade after Alien, but how are you going to try to convince me that you have a strong female character that's never been seen before when we can talk about Ripley? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
when they're showing loud and proud that they're not even doing their research into like genres and stuff before entering into them, then it's like, 100%. Well, I'm not going to trust I'm not going to trust what you're doing, really.
Exactly.
Like, and I'm not going to trust that you're even into the thing that you're making.
Exactly. Yeah. It convinces me that for them it's about money. For them it's a job. They don't love what they're doing. They're not trying to make something that other people will love. They're just trying to make a buck, and they know what the marketing is right now. The marketing is just use the words diverse, throw out as many isms as you can, and get the outrage marketing machine going and make a buck. That's current marketing. Hopefully that trend goes away, but that's what it is right now. And they know it. They're doing it intentionally. They know what sells, so that's why it's happening. It's just like sex used to sell, and now sex is bad. They knew. They were putting women on advertising in bikinis because they knew it would sell something, not because they thought it was empowering or because they thought that they knew that it would sell something. Well, now it's this, so they know it sells something. They really don't. They use minorities, gay people, and women as marketing tools all the time. They know what they're doing, and to me it's disgusting, and I don't know why more people don't call them out on it, but
I do agree.
Such as it is. With Peregrine and the Indiegogo, I've seen a couple posts, and I know there was some confusion. So to sort of lay it out there and kind of set the record straight in a format that isn't 180 characters from Twitter. What's going on with the distribution and shipping? I know you guys are running into some issues. So what's going on with that?
Yeah. So everything is done and made, and everything has been printed and sent to us. We have all the packing materials. We have everything but the books themselves, even though they are done and made. So there was some back and forth with the printer over the files themselves.
Okay.
Because we got some print proofs and found some mistakes. So we needed to go back in and do that. Well, at the exact same time, the person on our team that was doing the back and forth with the printer, he's run into some big time family health issue problems. He did get into detail in one of the updates. I just don't want to get into his details for him because it's his business. But so as a backup plan, like this was our first go. So we thought we had all of our bases covered, and we didn't have a backup plan for some of our backup plans. But
it happens.
We do have somebody else now that is going to take over the distribution part. The problem we are stuck on is the getting the books from the printer part. Okay. So we have everything else waiting and ready to go so that we can start packing and shipping. And we've had it like that for a while.
Gotcha.
And so the person that was in charge of communications between, he's like the money guy. So like he's where the money went so that he can divvy it up and send it where it needs to go. So he's the one that needs to be communicating with the printer over what the holdup is. And he was under the impression for a while that everything was good and we were just waiting for the books to come in. And so while he's dealing with his family stuff, he kind of just, he's kind of on autopilot and was just, we're waiting on the books. That's it. Like, they just need to show up here and we're good. And, some people started asking and I started, we all started to get worried. And I was like, it's been a while though. Like, it's been a while. And all he knows is that we're waiting on the books. We need to find out. So that's what we're trying to find out right now. Okay. Is that, it's been a while that we've been waiting on these books to show up at, this dude's house.
Right.
And they haven't shown up. So he is going back through his spam folder and this and that, trying to figure out if he missed something on, that. And if not, then he's going to, write to the printer and be like, hey, did I miss something? Like, we've been waiting a bit. Can you give us an update? Where's our books?
Yeah. Okay. So I understand things get really completely out of your control. I guess that's the unfortunate part of seeing how the sausage is made, so to speak. When people are starting to realize, I think, with Indiegogo and with Kickstarter and whatever other crowdfunding there might be, is not everything goes as planned. It happens in every medium, but in a lot of cases we're shielded from it. If a game sets a release date, I'm sure that they plan for that release date to be months after they really think the game is going to be completed. And every once in a while they get close to it and they're like, crap, we're not going to be able to release. And they push it out, but that doesn't happen very often. So we don't see all the setbacks and the problems. And, when a team loses people, like I work in the computer field. So when we're working on a project for a business, if we lose somebody on staff unexpectedly or somebody gets sick, that sets us back, but the customer doesn't normally see that. But with Indiegogo and Kickstarter, you're seeing that. You're seeing exactly what can cause problems. And I think people need to remember that while they're also customers in this, they're investors too. And things happen. Like, you can't, I know some people are getting upset, and they get upset all the time with Kickstarters and Indiegogos that don't complete exactly the way they think they're going to complete. But and I can understand some, like, well, you said you were going to deliver on this date, you didn't deliver. What's the plan? And I can see where there's some teams that just go radio silent. I'm trying to remember, there was a comic book release, and I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. I was reading about it a couple months ago that they did, like, they got funded, they got everything, and then radio silence, and people like, what the hell happened? Like that I can understand being mad about. But I don't understand why people are upset with what's going on in your situation, because you literally can't ship something you don't have, and it's not, you guys aren't making the book, somebody else is making the physical book, and you're kind of at their mercy right now, and that it's unfortunate, But it happens.
I know I get fussed at every once in a while when I try to point this out, but it really does seem like there's a lot of people that don't quite understand what crowdfunding is. they pretty much just chalk it up to, I'm pre-ordering this thing.
Yeah.
And that's not what it is. Now, some people use the crowdfunding sites for that. Some people do have their stuff already made and printed and then go to the crowdfunding sites to do a pre-order type situation. And I think that's why people get confused as to what crowdfunding actually is supposed to be. But yeah, you're investing in a project, and the bonus is, getting this sweet stuff that nobody, in a lot of cases, nobody else is going to get. That's the bonus. But you're investing in something being made, which means you get to see, hopefully, how the sausage is made, because I feel like you deserve to get to, be along for the process and hear about the whole process. The radio silence people are the ones that, as when I back somebody, that makes me nervous.
For sure.
And so we've been trying to keep people updated when we have more information. And I think, some just got like upset because we went a bit of time without updating.
Yeah, that's
and I could understand that. Like, well, you said you're waiting on the books, and it's been a while. And I'm like, I'm right there with you guys. Yeah. We did. We were told that we were waiting on the books, and we've just realized too that wait a minute, it's been a while. We're with you. So we're looking into it. We want to know why it's been a while. But the dates are estimates. There are some that just the people that make me nervous are the ones that, like, you hit that date and they don't care that it's an estimate. And once you hit that date, you're bad. You're evil. You're bad. They're never trusting you again. That date was a guess. It's supposed to be a guess. The crowdfunding sites try to tell people that, hey, that's a guess, because we can't predict everything that's going to go wrong. We thought we gave ourselves more than enough time, like on ours. Since it was our first one, we're like, well, we're going to give ourselves like a big estimate way out there, and we should be able to beat that. And here we are now. We are past it and freaking out because we're past it.
Sure. Like, you understandably, hey, Seth, how's it going? Seth just jumped into the chat.
Nice.
Yeah, I can understand. Like, you can't account for, especially right now, you can't account for everything. Did you guys run into any problems? A friend of mine kickstarted her first role-playing supplement book, and she had a couple people that were really adamant that, like, she shouldn't do this. She'd never make her goals. She'd never, like, they didn't even support. They just jumped into, like, comment and say, oh, there's no way you're going to get this done. I'm like, why would you even take the time to do that? Did you guys have anything like that going on at the beginning?
We more or less had, like, some people that, like, really wanted to sabotage. I think not warn against, but just sabotage. But they didn't make it very far, which is, it's pretty awesome. But there are people out there that are just like, they don't want to see people succeed in general, and they'll do what they can to, I guess it makes them feel better. Like, to me, other people's success and helping other people's success makes me feel good, as opposed to trying to thwart other people from having success. Like, but for some people, I think that's what makes them feel better about themselves. Is
that's frustrating. But I agree. I see people like that all the time. If you had to give it advice, like, so this is your first one, you've seen other ones go through, and you've seen other people do. If somebody were starting their first crowdfunding, what would you say is probably the most important thing when it comes to doing your own Indiegogo or Kickstarter or whatever it might be?
So the most important advice that I am so glad we went with, there's a couple of people that keep trying to push like there's a shortcut. There's not. But so my biggest advice is that number that you asked for initially, make sure, do your math and make sure that is really the number that you need to do what you're initially offering to do. And don't put anything else on that. Do not put this tiny number, because I guess if you put a tiny number that you're going to pass really easy, you'll get onto the trending pages of like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and stuff. So people keep going, oh yeah, put this little number, you're obviously going to pass. And then you'll look special. You'll look special on the front page. And it's like, yeah. And then later you're screwed because you said you could do it for $500 when really you needed like 5,000. And now the campaign's over. You have $1,000 that you have to do $5,000 worth of stuff with. Don't look for shortcuts and tricks and this and that. Do not listen to shortcuts and tricks. Make your funding, like make that number exactly what you actually need to deliver on your promise, or you're going to screw yourself and your backers.
Agreed.
And they won't trust you again.
Yep. So Free Range Human just dropped in too. It says compersion is superior to pettiness any day. Yep. No, agree. There are a lot of petty people out there online. There's a lot of people out there that, like you said, I think they get off on just shitting on other people. They fall into the same crowd of people who want to shit on the stuff that we used to like. Just petty people.
They like centered a personality around not liking what an popular thing. Yeah. And now there's so many people that have centered their entire personalities around that they are just shitting things off everywhere.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's a huge, just across the board, is just people, their whole world revolves around latching onto things to hate. And it's like, why do you even spend the time? I don't know how many times I see people just go on and on about this, whatever it is, this thing that they don't like. Like, if you don't like it, you know how many millions of things there are out there to like? Like, you're wasting all this time talking about this thing you hate when you could be enjoying something you like. Or maybe you just hate, I don't know. Do you like just hating everything? I've never understood the concept of either I'm going to hate watch this show just so I can bitch about it, or I'm going to talk about how I don't care about something so much that I'm just going to constantly post about how much I don't care about it. It's like,
oh, I love those. I don't care about such and such so much that it's the only thing I can talk about.
Right? Like, if you hate this saying, fine, just go enjoy something else. Let other people enjoy the things they enjoy. You know, I don't know, like, it's so negative sometimes. It just drives me up the wall.
I don't mind like joining in a conversation, critiquing something that, especially if it's something, you know, along the lines of, I wanted to like this and I am so upset with everything about this and here's why.
Right.
But then, you know, you have the conversation, you know, it might start up a few different times because of a few different people, especially with social media. Somebody's going to start it back up. You put your 2 cents back in there every once in a while. But, you know, and then eventually go talk about, but, you know, balance it out. Go talk about something that y'all found that you did enjoy.
Exactly.
Like, you need the balance.
Yeah, I would agree. Because it just gets to the point where people just, I don't know, I just wind up muting a lot of words. It's gotten to the point where there's certain words I just muted on Twitter and stuff just because I just don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see it. Sometimes there are people that like I enjoy talking to, but there are just certain topics that I just don't like. I'll admit I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Star Wars is on my muted list on Twitter. Like, I would love to talk about it, but no matter what, you're going to run into people that are just so vile. Like, it's not worth it. It's not worth the stress. So I just mute it because I don't want to hear it anymore. You know, like,
that's me too. Like, I liked original Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I can't have a conversation about original Star Wars without Disney Star Wars becoming part of it. And I do not want anything to do with Disney Star Wars. Yeah. So I get that too. I haven't muted it, but I've just completely avoided, like, I used to be an out there like, oh, we're talking Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars, you know, I love Star Wars. And it's just become avoiding the topic of one of my, you know, some of my favorite stuff. Same with Doctor Who, a bunch of stuff. There's just like, oh yeah, that's my favorite. Well, was my favorite. And now I just don't even want to talk about it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets to the point where you just want to enjoy what you enjoy and not even hear, I just don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So talking about comics characters and everything, if you could have, like, your dream character or your dream title. If somebody were to come to you tomorrow and say, I want you to work on this, what would it be?
Ooh. Um, that's so tough because there's so many.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to give Poison Ivy a solo book.
Mm.
I don't know if she could carry a solo book, not as is, but I want her to remain a villain, but she can be she always was kind of a sympathetic villain. So
Right.
instead of doing this Harley thing where she's all cute and we're doing this stuff now, she's
Mm-hmm.
kind of good or whatever. I would
Yeah.
love to do a Poison Ivy book that just explores the fact that she's a villain.
Yeah.
But let's explore, let's give her a start to finish. Like, let's go back to her origin and really clean that up and make it, a bigger part of the story than just like this flashback of, I don't know, this stuff happened. Like,
Yeah.
really go in there and really give her some more depth. And then let her have a book where she might be the lead, but she's still doing villain stuff and all the other characters are still like there.
Yeah.
It's just from her point of view. I would love to do that.
I think that'd be really cool. You said the evil words, though, sympathetic villain. We can't have that anymore, can we?
But she was one of the original semi-sympathetic villains. Instead of trying to make all of them that way,
right.
Let's use ones that were already made and give them some depth, but still use them to remind people that, evil is, bad things are bad still. Like,
yeah. Right.
Even if you can justify them in your head, that's sometimes part of the villainy right there, is being able to justify some stuff, especially when you're doing them to innocent people.
Right. I think that's kind of where, and I love that concept, and I love that idea of showing that, because I think that's I don't know, I think people are getting really confused with the difference between a sympathetic villain and a villain you feel sorry for. Like,
yeah,
those are not synonymous. A sympathetic villain just means that their reasoning makes sense. Not that you agree with it or that you like it, but that it makes sense.
Yeah, you just understand the reasoning. Like,
right.
I can see it from that point of view, I guess. But
yeah, like, it's still bad. Like, whatever you're doing is still wrong. Like, I understand that in your head it makes sense, but it's still bad. I mean, to take it, hey, Pastorino Olivier. Hi.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I think I know who that is. I think that's from one of the bands that I've done. And Seth says that he has his kids watch the original Fox tapes of Star Wars. Very cool. Pastoriano says Joker's the best villain ever. And I think that's a good example, because I think a lot of people think that the Joker... I see a lot of people complain that when the Joker was kind of given a backstory, or kind of given... And he never really was. There's a lot of different backstories with the Joker. There's a difference between making the Joker's relatable or sympathetic and feeling sorry for him. Like, just because you get why he does what he does doesn't mean that you also would, or that you agree with it. And I think that's where people are missing the point. Like, I keep seeing this, we just want to see, I see it from both sides. I see it from one side says, if you have a sympathetic villain and you sympathize with them, that means you're bad too. But then I see from the other side that they're like, we don't want any sympathetic villains. We just want our villains to be black and white, two-dimensional characters who are just evil for the sake of evil. And I would ask both of them, give me a villain who doesn't have a reason for doing what he does that is any good. That also isn't a... Because everybody will bring up the one that's like a psychopath. Psychopaths are different. Psychopaths don't have a reason for doing what they do. But name me one good villain that doesn't have a reason for being the way they are. I don't think anybody can come up with a good one that doesn't have a reason. You know what I mean? Like, I can't think of one.
I think there's a place in stories for both kinds of villains, like the ones that seem two-dimensional.
Right.
Because sometimes I like being able to freaking hate a character.
Right.
out having to question if it's right of me to hate the character or what I would do in the character's shoes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to hate a character.
No, yeah, I 100% agree. And that actually that's a good example, because take like what's probably one of the most hated characters from TV in the last few years has been Joffrey from Game of Thrones. I hated that little bastard. Like I legitimately was glad when he died. But he still had a reason. Like there was all the reason in the world for him to have turned out the way he turned out. We got it from the whole book or show, whatever you watched. In either one, it was the same thing, So it's not like you had to go, okay, I get why he's the way you get and I feel bad for him. No, you still hated the shit out of him. But there was a reason for him to be the way he was. I think there's a difference between giving a character a backstory or giving a villain. And you're right, there is a cause for a villain who doesn't need a backstory, but they're not necessarily the main villain either. Throwaway villains, bad guys who just exist to be bad guys. But I always go back to like, especially like the earlier, like the MCU is a good example. Most of the villains in the MCU have been awful. They've only been there to give the heroes somebody to beat up on. And they've been terrible villains because they don't have any other reason to exist than to be the bad guy in a movie. Until we get to like Vulture and Thanos, and there's been a couple others, but most of the rest of them were just kind of like unmemorable punching bags for the heroes, really, And I guess that's kind of where I differentiate the two between sympathetic and, it's not that you got to feel bad for him. There just needs to be a reason for them to be the way they are.
Yeah, there's some depth there.
Right.
Well, that's why I like Joker usually gets brought up in this argument because outside of loved the One Bad Day, that whole monologue. But at the same time, he is one of those that's just like you can't pin him down. You don't really know why he does this. Now there's been, he's been around for a long time. So there's been plenty of comics and movies and cartoons and all sorts of good stuff to kind of explore that. But what I kind of liked about the exploration, into Joker was they always led in completely different directions. So at the end of the day, you're still like, is he intentionally crazy? Like, is he actually crazy? Or is he just acting that way, like, because he feels like it? Nobody knows. And I kind of like that. He's one of those could be two-dimensional villains that just works.
I agree, and I think that's part of the mystery of the Joker, and it does work from time to time, and it works with the Joker, I think, because he's such a mysterious character, and people are trying to I think part of it is people are trying to figure him out, and that's part of the fun of that character. Is he crazy or is he not? Is he the way he is because Batman made him that way, or because something else happened to him in his past? Like, I think that's part of what drives the interest in that character, is because you're trying to figure out why. Like, why is he like this? Why is he so obsessed with Batman? Why is he so over the top? And then why does he have a code? Like, as much as he gets a lot of crap, Joker still sort of has a code. There's certain things the Joker doesn't do, which is what drove me nuts when people gave so much criticism to the Killing Joke, because there's still a line that the Joker doesn't cross.
It's a very tiny one, but it's there.
It's
like,
there.
Yeah.
It's there. Pastorino says Shyamalan's Mr. Glass is also a great example of a great villain. Yeah, that was actually, we watched the last one of that. My wife and I just recently watched the last one of that series. Nice. Yeah, it was very cool. I was glad to see the end of it. And here I go with names again. The guy who played the Beast, the guy who played the multiple personality dude. That guy blew me away with that whole series when he was Mr. Glass, and I can't remember what the other one was that he was in. He was just so damn good at that part. Do I advice. What would you say? Okay, so we got advice for indies doing Kickstarters or people doing crowdfunding. What about just independent creators in general, whether you're going to write or do art? What do you think would be good advice for an independent to do what you do, to find time to do what you do? What's kind of advice? James McAvoy, thank you, Pastorino. James McAvoy was awesome in that. But what kind of advice would you give to indie creators?
In general, do what you do for you first. Worry about who your audience is after. Because if you love what you're doing, somebody else is definitely going to dig it. But if you sit there and go, start off with, I want to appeal to XYZ, well, then it's going to show in your work that you didn't go in it with, I want to tell, an epic tale or draw this, beautiful thing. It's going to show that you went in with, I want this to specifically, target these people and nobody else. Like that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is if you go in that specific, then that means you are, whether intentionally or unintentionally, excluding potential audience. The second you try to narrow it down, then you're narrowing down who it's not going to attract at all. If you go in there and go, man, what would be a cool story is if, this freaking dinosaur could, trying to make up some weird example.
It's not always easy, is it?
Right? It'd be a cool story though. I would love to read if you have I would love to read and not I as XYZ would love to read but just I would love to read or see, this thing, then there's a really good chance that there's plenty other people that are, all walks of life, way different from you, that are still in the same mind of, oh, I would love to see that too. So create for you and figure out who your audience is, later, if you need to at all. Just create to create. Create something you want to read or create something you wish you had as a kid. All that, not create something that you think other people wish they had as a kid or this or that. Like, don't start narrowing down your audience. Start with your idea.
Yeah, I'm with you. I 100%. I think too often marketing now is, and in the publishing field and in writing anymore, getting published is what is good for the market today may not be good for the market tomorrow. But unfortunately, most of us authors are writing a book that won't be out for 2 years, and we're trying to guess, or they're trying to guess. I don't care, but most authors are trying to guess what's going to be popular in 2 or 3 years, because that's when your book's going to be done, and you can't even begin to guess. Like, perfect example. I wrote a short story series with a vampire lead years ago, probably 20 years ago now. And I submitted it, and I got back rejection after rejection about how nobody wants vampires, nobody wants this, nobody wants that. And not 2 or 3 years after that comes Twilight. And now vampires and zombies are every freaking where. It's like, why can't you just publish a good story? Why are you worried too much about what people want? Because eventually people are going to want that, and eventually people did want that. It's frustrating, and you're right. Don't try to chase that. I feel like
indie is just the way to go in general. Like, just another one I would just tell people, like, the reason for the longest time I thought I wanted to be into comics or animation when I was, itty bitty bitty. Even if it was just the writing the stories part and stuff like that. And, as I grew, reality set in, and I'm like, wow, there's just no way that any of my stuff, my ideas, this and that, are going to get picked up. Yeah. So I should give this up. I'm not going to be a whatever. And it wasn't until this big, crowdfunding indie boom thing that I'm like, wait, people like me can now get a shot, and we don't have to go through these big, companies that think they know what people want.
Right. Yeah, I think that was a huge eye-opener when I first started writing books to be an indie author, to be a novelist was expensive, was horribly expensive, because you had to go through independent publishers and printers, and you had to order 1,000 or more copies all at once, and like who has $5,000 to drop on a box of books that they might sell, like, so when Amazon and others, Lulu and I can't remember the other one, that they made it available to pretty much anybody, which is a double-edged sword, because that also means now the market is flooded with just thousands of books every year by everybody, because anybody can publish now. But it does make it easier for those of us who this is our dream, this is what we've always wanted to do. And yeah, for comics, I'm glad to see more and more, because comics have been one of those where you're kind of, not only do you need a mostly a team, unless you are that one person package where you can do the art and the writing and everything together, but then you've got to get somebody to make the book, and printing a novel is a whole different ballgame than printing a comic book.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see more and more avenues for indies for that, because I think that's needed. I think it's important. Hopefully it will make the big companies step up their game, but hopefully it will also open up the eyes to the fan market and because I wish for indie books it was the same, but for like indie music, indie movies, and even indie comic books, independent creation seems to have this niche market where people are like, ooh, indies, I'm into that. But a lot of times when they look at indie books, they're like, ooh, indies, like that's going to be garbage. It's like, come on, like you guys love indie music, but you don't like indie books. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it is the thousands of books that get published by people who really don't care anymore.
I was going to say, yeah, there is the problem of the market now being flooded and everybody kind of getting associated with the same level of quality, when that's just not right. But anymore, if the big companies keep going the way they are, they're going to stop being associated with quality themselves.
Yeah.
Because if more and more people start comparing some of the indies out there to some of the, big publisher stuff out there, and start really looking, there's no quality standard between the two. You can find a much better quality indie than some of the stuff that's out in the mainstream. And if they just keep letting it happen like that, there might be a big enough conscious shift
100%. Oh yeah. I'd stack up indies. I mean, I've looked at the art in Peregrine, the art in Rags, and the writing in both of those. I'm trying to think of the other one that I picked up. I picked up one at C2E2 that's just this husband and wife team that do their own book. Beautiful art, great writing, totally independent. I would stack it up against Marvel DC any day. And there's a lot of it out there like that. There's also a lot of stuff I see come across because of writing comic reviews. I get a lot of stuff submitted to me that I'm like, oh man, this is like somebody threw it together with a crayon. Which is what hurts indies, because people see that and they're like, indie. But there is some good stuff out there. So, so with Peregrine coming out in Indiegogo, it's obviously going to ship to the people who bought it. Are you guys putting stuff out available to the general public after that? Or are you going to sell books? And where are people going to be able to get those?
So after we make sure that every backer has gotten, exactly, and, if we need to resend something because anything happens, like we overprint, we budgeted specifically to overprint. Then we're going to decide the best way to put the overprints out there and see how they do. So if, the popularity and stuff spreads beyond the original backers and who invested in stuff, that'll help us gauge what we're going to do to get. We are already working on the script for the second one.
Oh, good. Okay.
Since, obviously, until every backer has everything they're supposed to, we're not starting another Peregrine campaign.
Right.
But since a lot of us are sitting here like, well, we did our job, we don't know what to do.
Right.
We're just going to go ahead and we're making and so the next Peregrine books are going to be bigger without changing the price point.
Okay, good.
After learning everything we could with the first campaign, we took first campaign was like a baby step, and now we're like, okay, now we know what we're capable of, what we shouldn't do anymore, and and all that good stuff. So I'm already super excited about the plot there. I'm also working on comics for all sorts of other people. I really wish that like comic shops stopped depending on like that owners of comic shops would actually start going through and looking at indies and start selecting to different indies to put on their shelves, instead of just relying on, the big publishers and stuff to stock the shelves, especially with the problem they're having moving that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's one of those where the customer either has to go in and request it, or you as the creator would have to go into those shops individually and ask them to carry it. And I know a lot of them would be open to that, but that's a lot of work. We face the same thing with books. I have to go into a bookstore and ask if they'll carry my book because they can't order it anywhere.
That is the big thing about being an indie creator right now is you don't have the marketing and this and that is, wrapped up in being with a big publisher. Right. You are your entire marketing team and all that stuff. But one thing that we were thinking of doing is splitting the extra, the overprints among us so that we all do have like a stack that we can locally go. And I know a couple places that I'm like, man, I would love to see Peregrine there.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
That would be good. Yeah, that's the way to do it, is just take them, just go wherever I go. Got my books in my truck, just take them into places, see if they'll carry them, and you never know. I've sold some I haven't. You just never know. So you say you have got your own book that you want to do. What is that? What's next? One day? Not anytime soon?
Yeah, well, the one I want to do one day is the one that I would really love to do the art for. I might cave and find an artist for it. But before that one, because that one is an extensive, like, huge universe all on its own, so it doesn't fall under reconstruction and stuff. I'm going to be doing some other reconstruction books. Lupa is a character made for the reconstruction verse. So she gets, some background stuff going on in the Peregrine books. Doing solo book for her might be solo books. It's going to be her origin for her. So she gets a background because hers is interesting. Hers needs some explaining.
Yeah. Nice. I like it. Yeah, I like when people branch out and not just go, because there's been a few indie books that I've looked at that are just they kind of stick to their one character and they don't ever delve into the rest of the world. And that's always been the draw of Marvel when I was coming up, was like I read the X-Men, but I also like to read the other offshoot books because it kind of broadened the world and it gave you more to experience rather than just what was happening to the main characters. So
yeah, Peregrine is the flagship character, I would say, for the reconstruction verse. But there are a lot of characters and there's a lot of world to explore. There's going to be a lot going on. So almost every character you see in the Peregrine books is at some point going to have a solo either book or series, depending. Some really are supporting characters and don't really need it, but Lupa is one of those that doesn't she doesn't seem like much in the background. It's her origin of how she got to that spot in the background. That's the cool part. And so that's one I'm working on.
Very cool.
And I'm working on some books outside of reconstruction verse and outside of Grade 0.5. There's a bunch of scripts in various degrees of finished, but we're not going to go any farther with any of them until we figure out why Peregrine's not in people's hands yet.
Awesome.
But it's lots of plans there, and then I've got lots of plans with Luke Stone too.
Nice. So a lot to look forward to for people who are fans or want to jump on board. There's going to be a lot coming. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So people can find you on your website, which I'll link below, your YouTube channel. Is there anywhere else people should be looking for your content?
Well, besides Twitter, I am gonna because people have been insisting, I am going to open other social media accounts and actually try and keep up with them.
It's tough.
I'm told I need to do that for marketing purposes, and I'm just like, man, I can barely keep up with the one that I got right now. But okay. But I also am doing stuff on Twitch just for entertainment purposes. That I finally started using. Soon I will have an animated avatar, so I'm gonna like do the whole cute VTuber thing.
Cool.
But it's just it's just to play video games and entertain people and chat with them. Yeah. Basically, I like making people laugh or smile.
Nice. Well,
if I can't get a laugh.
That's a good goal. That's actually a really good goal. I prefer that to anything else.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's been great talking to you. I will make sure everything's linked in the video description below, so everybody go to her channels, go to her website, go to Twitch, follow, subscribe, whatever that platform requires. And yeah, come back for more. Thank you so much, Piper. It was awesome talking to you again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And we look forward to more stuff coming out soon.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You guys have a great one. Much love.